Hey, my beautiful souls. Welcome to the Spatial Sarah podcast. I am on a mission to bring back the lost art of meaningful conversations that touches our heart and expand our perspectives. My intention is to create a space where you feel seen, heard, and loved. Each episode is crafted to hold that space, allowing you to open up and explore thoughts and ideas in a safe environment. So, grab your imaginary marshmallows, find a cozy spot under the sky full of stars, and join me in these campfire-worthy conversations as I take you on a journey to places you've never been and spark conversations you've never had before. Let's go. Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of the Spatial Sarah podcast. Today here with me, I have Elena, and she is a leadership coach and an education professional. So welcome, Elena. I'm so glad that you're here with me today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Lovely to be here.
Likewise, I'm truly grateful for you taking your time and being here.
I'm glad to share.
Cool. So I always like to start off by asking this question. What brings you joy, Elena?
What brings me joy is the spark that I see in people's eyes or in people's lives when I have shared something with them that they either never heard of before, or that moment when they get the click of, I now understand something. So yeah, as a teacher, as a person in education, that was my starting point to why I even got into this career or this profession in the first place, and hopefully going even further into why I think making things or doing things in our lives that actually make us happy are also the best way to foster growth and improvement in our lives and other people's lives around us.
Yeah, well said. I think I always say this on my podcast whenever I have the opportunity. I think when we help ourselves, we are able to help others more. A lot of time people think that, I gotta help others and others to be better, but no, we gotta help. Like, we gotta help ourselves first before we can help another person. Yeah. So
absolutely. And yeah, that saying that, you can't fill from an empty cup and those kinds of things. Yes, that absolutely resonates.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I always tell you. Even yesterday I had a recording as well. The same thing I said, you can't fill from an empty cup. So true. I want to start with something you said in your intake. That you said that I used to be Elena the complainer. Now I identify as Elena whose differences makes her a leader. Could you walk me through what happened? Like, what were the things you're complaining about? I see you having a huge smile. I've been through that path before as well. So yeah, so tell us.
Absolutely. So I mean, that was my nickname in high school, basically in the UK, and essentially I don't know how, but I always found the negatives in things. I always found, what things aren't going well for me, or what's something that frustrates me. And then ultimately, I don't know how, but like friends and people in school and around my social circles, they just basically nicknamed me Elena the Complainer. And that was my high school kind of catchphrase of Elena the Complainer. And only recently, when I went through, my mental health transformation and career and all of those kinds of things transformed and obviously sparked by the pandemic. I say obviously because I think a lot of people were in that same situation, in that same boat. But when I went through all of those, downturns and things like that, I I did a lot of soul searching and actual therapy, kind of looking back in my childhood and growing up, and basically what in my early years or in my early life has led me to where I am currently, whether that is my mindset, whether that is my current financial situation or family, social situations. And I came to the conclusion that actually I don't want to be Elena the complainer. I don't want to be someone who only looks for the negatives in things. And I used to say this because actually at the time, and one of the people who has always been my exact opposite was the optimistic and the, everything will work out, it will sort something out, we'll do something. That was my mum. And I used to always say, because for her, it was that her catchphrase was kind of like, there's people out there that are worse off. There's people that have so much more struggles than you. And, you've got to stop complaining about everything. And only after I went through that transformation, I was able to kind of put it into perspective and say, actually, the thing that I was resisting the most, which was that my mum's mindset and the mindset of, that yes, there's other people out there that are worse off, but also complaining about something isn't actually doing anything positive to help you, or it's just waste of energy, really. And when I came to the conclusion that actually I don't want to waste energy, I don't want to waste my time, I don't want to waste my years, I don't want to waste my life, I decided complaining, if I am not actually coming up with at least one point of how I can help the situation, whether it's finding someone else who can guide me through coming out of that situation, or whether it's me doing something to change my mindset about that situation, then I'm not going to have that on my plate. I'm not going to complain about it unless I've actually actively found something else to help it and to support the improvement. So how am I going to help myself to get out of this situation? Whether it's support or whether it's my own, working with myself, at least doing something about it. And currently I do this with, especially with my partner and with people around me. Whenever I hear somebody complaining about something, I go, I've understood. Thank you for sharing. Now, what are you going to do about it?
I like that, because many people, they complain, like at least for you, there was a turning point, and you consciously made the decision that you're no longer going to tolerate this. You're going to stop complaining, and you started looking for things and how you can improve yourself. What are the lessons here, whatever modalities that you use, right? But many people stay stuck. So for you, you would say it was just recent years, in the past, probably 3 years since the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
So 2020, I believe you were made redundant because of the pandemic, right? You were also depressed. So at that point of time, what was going through your mind?
Well, as many people can possibly imagine, the idea that for me, the depression and the like, let's put it this way, life crisis was the fact that I put my value into my work. So my self-worth was, if I am not a teacher, then who am I? What am I? Because at that point, I was made redundant from a job that I had only just started in the first 3 months. So from January 2020, I'd started, and in March, they basically said, I'm sorry, go home. We don't know if we're going to have a job for you. And I was like, okay, great. So what the hell do I do now? And in that point, it was like, literally, what do I do? What do I do? Because that good old question of, when you meet someone new, what do you do? And that kind of got to a point where it was really frustrating to say, what do you do? I didn't have an answer to that anymore. And that,
did you ask yourself that question as well? Did you ask yourself, like, yeah, okay.
And even if I, when I was asking myself what do I do or who am I I always kind of latched on to the idea that I am an influencer. I'm a person that helps other people live and improve their lives, whether that means a child or a teenager or an adult or a grandparent, whoever it is that I come across. I am able to, my abilities and my superpowers are that I am able to take information, compress it down into very bite-sized pieces, and impart that information into actionable steps for someone to follow. So I said, I am a trainer. I am a person who helps people put complicated information into bite-sized pieces for them to actually implement in their lives. And how I do that, it doesn't need to be in the traditional, schooling environment. I worked out that my main dream was always to open my own school. And then I said, we're in the middle of the pandemic. Everybody's at home. They're not really, going to school, or I'm not, by the looks of things. I've made, hundreds of applications for teaching jobs, and everyone was either being furloughed or made redundant and so on. So I was like, what's the chances of me actually going back into teaching? It's highly unlikely until at least some period of time when all of this madness is over. So I then tried to find every possible training, every possible free, because obviously being made redundant and actually basically not having a salary for a year, it made it exceptionally difficult for me to do any trainings or pay for things. So every single thing that I found that was free, that would teach me how to make my own school, or how to make a business, or how to teach online, or something along those lines, I took everything. I was literally like, I had a moment where
this must have been tough, because this is pre-chat GPT, right?
Yep.
You need to gather everything from different angles and all.
Yeah. Yes. And that's why it was literally, I got to a point in sort of, I think roughly the end of 2020, when I actually had to, I actively paid for a hypnotherapist to help me widen my brain power. Like that's how kind of drastic the situation was for me, because I had gone through therapy, and I sort of, okay, I've done the childish work, or the work of my childhood. Now let's see, what can I do currently to help me in my future? So if I do want to make my own online school, then how am I going to do that? I definitely need resources. And at the moment, I can't pay for resources, so I'm just going to have to get a bigger brain.
I like that.
So, and it also helped, or at least in my own brain, was the two identities of being a double national and two languages in my brain that at various points in my life didn't connect. And I wanted, these exact words I said to the hypnotherapist. I said, I want you to help me make a bridge between my English brain and my Romanian brain. Make those two things work together. And yeah, it slowly but surely, it started to show, obviously with training myself and knowing the strategies of how to do that. Because there were things that I had learnt, let's say, as a Romanian, or as in my Romanian brain, which was my sort of childhood brain, and then a lot of things that I had learnt in my English brain that I wanted, I said, if I could make the bridge between these two thinking processes, or these two sort of emotional beings, then I can definitely impact much more. So yeah.
There's, as you were speaking, there's something that I really, really wanted to point out, because I'm not sure if you're aware of it. I think the changes happened for you at that point of time. I realized that you ask a different question.
most people ask the question, especially when you say that you are so used to being negative, right? But instead, you realize that you didn't ask yourself, why did this happen? Why is this happening to me? You did not ask yourself that question. And that question is a very, very victimized mindset kind of question. Why me? Why this? Why? Whenever we will ask ourselves the why question, our brain goes into a defense mode. But I realized you never said that. All you said was, who am I? What do I do? You kept asking that question. And I think that was that thing that actually pulled you up, because every time we ask like a what question or who, where, how, those kind of questions, uh, naturally our brain, we are wired to seek more answers, right? And it's more towards the empowering. So I just wanted to point that out, because for people who are listening, they need to know that it doesn't matter where you are at your life, like which point you are, but the question you ask yourself, it's so important, because most of the time we ask ourselves such disempowering questions like, why me? Not again? Yeah. I so
Absolutely.
yeah,
And
well done for asking those kind of questions.
I must admit, I didn't come to that conclusion myself of what questions to ask, but actually one of the biggest things that I, when I was going for all of these sort of YouTube clips and personal development kind of trainings and I'll get onto it a little while of what sparked a lot of this change. Primarily it was a book, but along my whole journey of personal discovery and personal development, one of the things that kept coming up was, if you want to be a bigger person or a better person, ask better questions. So that to me was like, okay, so what kind of questions should I be asking? And then I would go on YouTube or go on Google and find out, what are the kinds of things I should be asking. And then, coming across the law of attraction and things like that, I always had these beliefs that if you look for the worst, then you're going to find the worst. If you look for the best, you're going to find the best. It's all about, us as humans have the power to do both good and bad, but it's where we are just a tool. How do you use your tool, your brain, your body, your spirit? How do you use it to achieve the good that you want to achieve in the world? Some people, yes, use their superpowers to achieve negative things, but I like to think that there's more people out there that are wanting to achieve good than there are people who want to achieve bad.
Yeah, I like this thing that Simon Sinek has said. He said that, the pessimists will always say that they are being practical. But as an optimist, I'm also being practical. I'm being practical about what could possibly go right. The difference is that you think about what could go wrong, being practical. I'm also being practical. I'm thinking about what could possibly go right. I just love the way you said that. You also mentioned about there was a time when you had an identity crisis. And I think for myself as well, going through self-development, self-discovery journey for the last 20 years, similar to you, a book changed me. That was my very first introduction for me. So during that identity crisis, what were you feeling like? Because obviously your external is still the same, but internally something has shifted. But then you got to deal with the external shit, which is still the same thing. And it's most of the time many people struggle with that. So could you talk about that a little? What did you do?
Yeah, and absolutely. And at the time, actually, it was me identify. So a lot of the mental sort of stress and mental sort of downside that I was having wasn't necessarily just because of my because of my struggles with not having work and not feeling like I'm actually a worth something human being. At that time was literally just I felt like I'm not worth anything because no one's willing to pay me for doing something. And it at that same time I was very either consciously or unconsciously isolating myself from family members and friends, and I still haven't figured out yet whether that was a blessing or a curse. I'm not sure, but slowly but surely, the more I isolated, or I made the decisions to not interact with people who were negative, who were essentially, I was at a point where I told my family, I don't ever want to hear anyone else's problems. No one tell me anything else, any other negative stuff. I'm already getting all of this crap from TV, from everything else. I didn't watch live TV anymore. I would just watch something funny on Netflix or something, and I would that was my way of kind of dealing with the negativity that was around me. And I discovered that was my mechanism, my self-preservation mechanism. But at the same time, once I slowly came out of that, and things actually slowly started to open up, and you were able to interact and go out and able to travel and so on and so forth. When I did reconnect with family members that either hadn't seen or I had spoken to in probably a few months, they actually looked at me like I was an alien. It was like, who are you? What's going on? You're like completely different. And at the same time, I was physically different as well, because all of the stress. And I don't want to say necessarily that I had, so I had lost. I don't want to say lost, because the mentality is that I want it back. I don't want it back. But I had gotten rid of about 12 kilograms in about 3 months. So it was a mixture of actual stress and depression, but also of me actively trying to make myself healthier. Because I said, this is the only thing that I can control, is my body and my mindset. So if I can control, not actually sitting at home and eating crap, then I am going to try and find the cheapest ways to be healthy, and to be healthy from all aspects. Be healthy in my body, be healthy in my hormones, be healthy in my in my thinking. And I always knew that because obviously my previous sort of education and degree was in physical and sport education, but with sports science, I was very interested in that idea of the concept of the connection between the body and the mind, and how whatever you feed your body ultimately feeds your mind, and the same thing opposite. So I kind of took the decision of, I'm going to do whatever I think is right for me health-wise, and everyone else is just going to have to deal with it. Obviously, when it comes to weight loss and things like that, people, my family members were like, "Oh my God, you've lost so much weight. Like, are you okay?" And that kind of thing. And I was like, I've chosen this. I've chosen to actually cut out, meat, and cut out dairy products and things like that from my diet. And this is the result. I feel much happier. I feel much healthier. And I've actually lost excess weight that I didn't need. And I hadn't previously been able to do that. Not that I was, too overweight or anything like that, but I felt like there's just extra stuff that I don't need. So how do I make sure that I do this in a healthy way, and at the same time get the results that I never thought I could get, or didn't think that I could get very easily, which it happened that actually you can get all the results that you want as easy as possible if you don't resist the change, and also if you make sure that you have actionable steps rather than just some concepts out there.
I like what you did about just cutting off everything and just isolating yourself. So yes, that is a blessing. It's a huge blessing, because it's difficult to control our environment and other people, because ultimately the only three things that we have control over is our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions, right? So the fact that you actually cut off everything and be able to do that work, I think that was such a huge part of it as well.
To me, it was literally like a life or death situation. If I wouldn't have cut out the negativity and the all of the negative things in my life, I honestly thought, I don't think that I'm going to be able to wake up tomorrow. Like that's the lowest that I felt. And mental health as a concept hasn't been such a, because I come from a very traditional Eastern European background, we don't talk about mental health. We don't even acknowledge that it's there.
I think generally the world is like that. We don't, unless the person have like some sort of awareness, then yes. But I think, I don't know, 80% of the world population, even back home here, it's like that. We don't normalize this kind of thing because we think that you're just being insane, or you have some psychological problems. So yeah,
we write people off. And actually, before 1 or 2 years before the pandemic, my dad went through a period of basically severe anxiety that he didn't understand that it was manifesting itself in his body and in his physical health, but he didn't actually understand until a doctor actually told him, look, mate, it's because you're completely stressed that you're having all of these heart problems. You don't have, high blood pressure. You don't have any of this stuff. You actually just have an anxiety problem. And when you work on your anxiety, you no longer need to take any heart medication or blood pressure medication or any of this stuff. You just need to find ways to deal with your brain. And that was, I think, the trigger of mental health awareness in my family and close friends. And then very shortly after that, when I went through the depression and the it was basically, I want to say it was a mixture of a depression and anxiety and basically just all round low everything. It was, I like to say it's not something special, as in I wasn't a special human being. I know that a lot of people were in that same situation, and for most people it was temporary, just like it was for me. But I also know that there are many people that deal with various different mental health challenges for many years of their lives, either because they're ignorant of them, or that they don't get or don't know where to get the support to be able to deal with it. So from my dad's situation, when I was, let's say, in a similar situation, my mum said, I will pay for therapy sessions for you to do this, because I always, and she was always the supporter of the no medication before, do everything you possibly can before you need any medication, because most of the theories and most of the culture around healthcare, especially when my parents were growing up and from when where I was born, it's, we give people medication to deal with everything. We give them antibiotics to deal with a sniffle. We give them, antidepressants to deal with.
So you become dependent on it.
Yes. So we make essentially and this is obviously a majority of the world at the same time right now, is just, let's medicate kids, let's medicate parents, let's medicate grandparents because they're dealing with something. But why not think about what's the easiest thing that they could possibly do to begin with and see if that works? Why go to the complete extreme things of messing up your gut and messing up your actual hormones because you're putting synthetic stuff that's man-made into your bodies, when actually you could be doing something very easy, like having a particular type of tea to deal with a blocked nose or something. It's ridiculous to me how all of this. And of course, right now I'm much more passionate about this because I'm 8 months pregnant, and it's kind of, very much at the forefront of my brain.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I am someone who's pretty much against pharmaceutical, actually. I always believe that we have the power within. Of course, it depends as well. If we have like chronic illnesses or, stage 4 cancer and things like that, even still, I've read about people who have healed themselves, even like, the olden days doctors where, I think it's Japanese doctors, where they kind of heal the cancerous cells just by doing some mantras and some sort of, I have no idea what it is, but it proves, right? It's proven. So if only people understand that, and also I think because of the pandemic, more people are becoming aware about mental health, but I think it still could be better. But I think there's still some sort of progress if you were to compare ourselves pre-pandemic, right? People are more open now about mental health and all.
Yes, and you say you've read about cases of healing very chronic disease. I actually had a family member who, a relatively distant family member, who healed himself from stage 4 cancer with no medication whatsoever, with just herbal remedies and herbal and lifestyle changes. I mean, to go from from the stage of being told you're going to die in 3 months or 6 months to you're completely healed in about a year and a half. I mean, that's and I always actually and especially share this with my brother, because I put all of this passion of holistic kind of health and well-being out to family and everyone. My brother was the one that sort of mentioned, you do know that we have an example in the family that you could use if you wanted to influence people, or to influence especially our family into realizing that you don't need extreme medications. In some cases, yes, you may do, but that shouldn't be the first thing, in my opinion.
I think sometimes the way the message is being conveyed to the patient, like the doctors just upfrontly tell you, because I've seen like that before. This man, like, it was a family friend, and he's so healthy, super healthy, and suddenly he found out he has, I think, stomach cancer, and he has another 6 months to live. And he did die a bit, and after that, we kind of saw him losing weight just like that, like for no reason. Before that, he was pretty healthy. And I don't believe you can get to a stage 4 without stage 1, 2, 3, right? So which means that you have been living with it. But how come because the doctor has said it and suddenly you just...
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
I mean, if I was the doctor, I mean, against all my whatever integrity or the rules of the medical law or anything, but I don't think I would go up and tell the patient, look here, if I know that person really have 6 months to live, I would tell the person he has 6 months to live. I probably might tell the family members, okay, he's pretty ill and all, but give him some, give other suggestions, like to encourage, because at the end of the day, he is really going to die in 6 months' time. Would you want to make it the best 6 months of his life, right?
Yeah.
Now, let's get to the interesting part, the book. For me, the book that introduced me to this whole entire world of the subconscious mind, the law of attraction. Actually, subconscious mind, not really the law of attraction. I got the law of attraction more from The Secret, but subconscious mind was more from this book called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. So that was the book that kind of started this whole journey. I think it should be maybe about 20 over years ago. And that has since been my journey. So for you, I believe it's the 7 Habits?
Yeah. So the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, was while I was going through, all of this, discovering what resources, what things are out there to kind of help, both logistically, but also, practically, what are the kind of steps that I can do. I've always been interested in psychology and again how the power of the mind over body and body connected with the mind. When I came across this this book, and because I was,
how did you come across the book?
So I can't exactly remember how I came across it. I think it may have come up as a suggestion on Audible, because I was so saying all of this, I haven't physically read a book, even cover to cover, since I was about 16. Since then, I have listened to audiobooks wherever possible. I have read all the Harry Potter books by them having been read to me, and in through earphones. So because at the time, I can't remember, I was looking for psychology or for leadership training books or materials on Audible and on Amazon. And because that was one of the only things that I said, I don't want to give up my one paying resource, which was, £8 a month Audible subscription, that I can get at least one book a month. Okay, with that I get 1 credit a month that I can input some valuable information. So I think it came up as a suggestion on Audible as to do with leadership training, leadership development. And at the same time, because I kind of sampled the idea, the way that it was portrayed, it was very easy to understand and easy to assimilate, and engaging for me. Like if just like a lot of people, if you are presented with information that is hard to understand, or too technical or things like that, your brain switches off. So I sort of first and foremost put my thinking, my training hat on, my sort of learning hat on, and then I said, do you know what, this is such a good sample that I need to hear the whole book. And it just so happened that at the time, my brother was relocating from the UK back to Romania with his family. So we were basically driving, because obviously planes and things were not possible. It was sort of like August of 2020, so you could still travel if you had a pretty good reason, that kind of thing, and got tested and everything else. So on this journey it took us about 26 hours of driving from London to Romania, and I literally listened to that whole audiobook in one go, and I just couldn't, because I was in the, so we each had my brother and my partner had each their own sort of vans taking stuff. I was in their family car, and I was alone basically in the car, so we were all kind of going in a chain. And throughout all of this, I was literally just blaring out through speakers of the car all of this goodness from this book, all of the teachings. And I actually, every time we made a stop at a gas station or something, I would always kind of share something with my brother or with my partner. It was, have you ever thought about this? Have you ever thought about this? So as soon as I actually was assimilating the information, I was also relaying it to somebody else, which helped to make my concrete ideas in my brain of what I'm learning, and then how would I be able to put that into practice, or how would I be able to teach this to somebody else. So from that point, I went into a whole kind of research after I read the book. Okay, I thought, how am I going to put these things into practice in my own life? How am I going to do this with my parents? How am I going to do this with my partner? How am I going to do this with friends, social circles, and everything else? And at the same time, how am I going to do this with business? So how would I put all of these into practice, all of these concepts into somehow make money? And I researched probably for a few weeks or so, and I came across the idea of I could get accredited to train the 7 habits of highly effective people, which I can train various branches of it, which can be for 7 habits for teens, 7 habits for parents, 7 habits for businesses and things like that. So I thought this is a catch-all leadership training that I could do and get paid for as well. So when I came across the idea of being trained in it, I started researching. I started getting into contact with who and how I can get training, but ideally I didn't want to pay for it because I wasn't making an income. So how can I get training, or how can I sort of do all of this with the least amount of capital needed? And I came across the franchising company in the UK for the 7 habits, and I literally just sent them a message and said, I would like to be a trainer. Can you please tell me how to train these concepts, or how to do this, and also basically be a coach for in these practices. And about a week later, I get an email back saying the head of the franchising business would like to have a meeting with you and go through what steps you need to do and so on. And from that point onwards, the first time that they met me, their let's say pinpoint moment was, they said, I can see your passion of leadership just oozing from your pores. And I was, at that point, I was like, yeah, that's just me. And then I went through the process. They said, as long as you go through the process and you become a trainer for us, you don't have to pay for the actual training. So I said, fantastic. And I went through the process of training, and at the same time, they said, you can also be a franchisee of the business, and you can have your own business and deliver the content as well as any other coaching or leadership principles that you want. And from that point onwards, I was like, it looks like my dream of having my online school or even my training center that much closer. And not
a traditional education. It's more on, this kind of thinking, design thinking, and all about how you can create your own reality, right?
Yeah. And because obviously, yes, I started off my life or my dreams of success. What success looked like was to have my own school. I obviously, during the pandemic, when everything was going online and so on, I said, well, why couldn't I have it online? The only why question that I ever ask myself is, why can't I do this? Why can't this happen? Not why can it happen? Why can't it happen? So that definitely pushed that idea in myself that I can have this. And it's not a finalized business or a finalized project yet, but it is I have actionable steps. I have a process in mind, and I've found the right people to surround myself with, business wise, business partners and at the same time possible clients and so on and so forth, very, very gradually. There's no thing of get rich quick kind of schemes or mindsets and things. Something that you value to a great extent in your life will never come for free, or will never come easily. That's at least that's my, I want to say that's the concept that I grew up with from family, but also through my own examples of how I became a teacher. It was not a straightforward go to university, get training, and then straight into teaching. No. And everything that has meant something to me had been and has been a hard but worthwhile endeavor. And I think people, if they don't have that motivation of, do you know what, I'm going to work at this no matter how much it takes or how long it takes. I am this dream is much bigger than you know, the money that I make tomorrow or today. Then I think in the long term, people will have much more success in their lives by being willing to do the hard stuff.
Yeah. I think most of the time people, myself included, we get ourselves so tangled up in the outcome, in the results, that we forget who we become in the process. So after many, many years of struggling and, you know, finally I learned that painful lesson that I am the effort, never the outcome, because the outcome may not be directly under my control, but my effort is definitely under my control, because even if I didn't get to, even if my end result wasn't what I expected it to be, but who I was when I started and who I am right now, totally two different person. And now when I start again, when I do something, I'm starting from experience and not as ground zero. I think as you were sharing your experience about your journey, and especially during when you try to become a trainer and you found a way to become a trainer without being paid. This word keeps popping up for me, and the word resourcefulness. And I'm not sure if you've heard Tony Robbins says it. He always said there's never a lack of resources. We always think that, oh, money's the issue. If I have the money, I will. Me, first-hand experience, I can tell you, even if you have the money to buy something, get that thing, because I've enrolled in like so many courses, which I kept telling myself, oh, you need to enroll in this course because only with this course you can be better. I would enroll, I will get all excited for a week or two, and then it goes down the drain, and I'm back to my normal self. So it's really not about the lack of resources. It's a lack of resourcefulness. So you were actually very resourceful in that sense, getting to what you want in using your own situation and your circumstances. You did not allow it to stop you. So I really, really like that. What is your favorite 7 habits out of the 7 habits? Which is your favorite one?
It has to be habit 1, being proactive. Like, because without that, without the idea that I've always had the personality or the thinking process that if there is something I can do now to get away from, or to get away from a possible bad situation in the future, or to do something now in order to get a bigger positive result later on, then to me, what I do now is much more valuable than anything that I have done in the past or anything that I am actually going to do in the future. So the idea of being proactive about things, being able to foresee, yes, but not letting it kind of cause anxiety in you of, oh, I see this massive, mountain that I have to climb before I get to the thing that I really want. Not letting that actually distract you from what is it that I can do? What is the first thing, the first step, or the first pebble that I need to go past before, in order to get to that ultimate, Everest mountain of a result.
I think people get so hung up in oh, the goal is so big. How do I get that? Dude, wear your shoes first. Wear your socks, wear your shoes. And then let's talk about the mountain. You still need to get your ass there. You still need to pack your clothes. You still need to open your door and go. So I think many people get so overwhelmed because they fail to see what can I do right now. Even if you want to build a business or you want to write a book, it's overwhelming to think about writing a book. Even if, I'm sure if you're being a course creator, creating a courses as well, right? It's overwhelming. Even for me, when I want to create a course, it's overwhelming. But I got to take a step back and ask myself what is the tiniest the easiest, the first step that I can take, which is probably, okay, I'll just write down one topic that I can talk about, right? So well said. I actually had experience. I've not read the book. I have the book, but I've not read the book. But I had my experience with the 7 habits because, so back in the days, I was working in Starbucks. I was a store manager in Starbucks, and every year we would have like a forum for store managers. So this particular year, I think it was a 3-day forum. But out of the 3 days, 2 days we had the 7 habits. So we had the trainers who came, and so that's when I kind of got introduced into this whole thing. And I remember writing down. I think there's an exercise. I'm not sure it's the first or second chapter. I can't recall. Maybe you will know better. Where they ask you to write your sort of like a mission statement, I think. Something like that, or your vision or something. I remember the music they played was so emotional. I was crying and writing down what I wanted to. I was just weeping and weeping. And I've never gone back and looked at it. Like, I think this must have happened 12 years ago. So I've not looked at it. But that was my experience with the 7 habits. And it was really useful because certain activities like the synergy part, working together and all, we had to get into groups and then try to act out. Or if you're in Starbucks, and then how would the manager handle the staff? How would you handle the customers? So I think that was a really nice experience. So as you were talking about your own experience, I think that was what was coming up for me as well. So thanks for sharing.
As you mentioned that, actually, if I'd like you to try and think back to you vividly remember an experience and a feeling. This comes back to the idea of how humans learn, how we assimilate, how we kind of grow. You remember that feeling and what actions, what actual activities you had to do. Now, can you think of a time in your school when you learned something in geography, for example, just out there?
No,
exactly. So unless I don't want to kind of put this out there as too much on teachers or too much on the education system, but if you think about how people learn, it's not by sitting down and just being told information or reading information. It's actually, how does it make them feel, and what physical thing do they remember doing that relates to that particular experience or that particular learning. So for you, even though you have never read the book or so on, just purely by remembering that you were able to put yourself in different people's situations, that's already, you've learned habit 6. There you go.
And what's habit 6 again?
Synergy.
Okay. I think I know that, and then I know begin with the end in mind.
Yeah, so that's the mission statement builder.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's when people say about their North Star, like how many people actually live by a mission statement or like a catchphrase of their lives. Most people don't even know what their catchphrase is, but also even if they do, most of the time they don't actually put it into practice or don't put that filter on everything that they do, or on the important times that they really need to make decisions. They don't take into consideration their North Star or their mission in life. And that's where a lot of the times why people get lost in just everyday stuff, but also that's why people become depressed, because they don't feel like they have something to why are they here on this planet? A lot of it is being overwhelmed by everyday decisions and everyday things, and actually feeling so low because you don't feel like you are here for a reason on this planet. Why are you here for, what's the reason for your living? And once you actually sit down and decide what that reason is, or look back, or even ask, family members what they see you being and behaving like, and does that align with who you want to be? Because, for example, when I was that concept of Elena the complainer, that I was like, that's not my mission statement. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be the person that complains about everything but never does anything about them. So I consciously made my mission statement to be the person that says, or the person that actions things that could be better, or what I can do to come out of a certain situation, or help myself in a certain situation.
Yeah. I think because we are not just taught, like, we've been taught to be like everyone else. We've not taught in school. Like, I feel like the first subject in school, as young as possible, right, is to just identify. The first chapter probably is just to identify, who am I? That's it. And then look back at that answer when you graduate and see how you have evolved, right?
Because when you said earlier about you don't remember, or you don't think you've looked back at your mission statement that you wrote back then, if you do know where that is, or you do have an idea of what that was, it would be really really insightful to see that 12 years later, and see, have I actually done this? Because it will be very. So I experienced this on myself, where I made let's say a vision, I kind of like a 3-year vision, and I kid you not, I wrote down, so my 3 most important questions, or that kind of thing. I wrote
MIQ.
down, yeah. So I wrote down that within the next year I will have had my first child, and so on and so forth. I kid you not, this is my reality right now. Not and at that time we weren't trying, we weren't in a position to want, or to necessarily be working towards having a child or anything like that. But it was literally like, I don't know how it just went, because I had written it down, because I had set my mind to it. It became the reality.
Obviously, I believe you, because it did not only happen to you, it happened to me. And I think my whole life has been like that. And I just write down something without any intention, nothing. And my most recent one I can tell you is maybe not very recent, but last year. So somewhere in February, I wrote down, when I was doing the 3 MIQs, right? So, okay, my experience, I want to attend Mind Valley U, I want to meet Vision, I want to meet Jack Canfield, and things like that. I kid you not. 1 month later, my relationship ended. My 13-year relationship ended a month later. And then I have to move back home. I was in a different country. I have to move back home. Exactly 2 months later, my dad passed away. After being away for 20 over years, I came back 2 months later, my dad passed away. And then I attended Mind Valley U. And then when I look back at my journal, I was like, what the fuck? So I took a picture with Vision. The things that I wrote down came. So, and it's not the first time. I've manifested so many things just by writing it and just throwing it away. And I'm not saying that you should just write a goal and throw it away. But if at least when you write it, if it's something that you really want to manifest, like for me, I didn't have any attachment, because when I wrote it down at that point of time with my situation, I knew I couldn't afford to travel to the other side of the world and attend. But somehow the universe just conspired and moved everything so that I could attend. So, I truly believe in the power of writing down your goal. I truly believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also gives your brain something to focus on that is doable, and it's like I mean, our mind.
That's just magic. It's just magic, because it's different when you type it out, when you just type it as a keyboard, and there's a power when you actually write it down with your hand on pen and paper. I've noticed that difference.
Yes, there is, and that's why people say that there's our brains are much better and much much more equipped than ChatGPT or any AI.
Yep.
That, again, those things are just tools that our human brains can and should use to better our lives and the lives of humanity. But you're absolutely right. That's why I love the connection between the mind and the body, because when you are writing something by hand, that is directly related to your nervous system and it goes directly to your brain.
I wanted to ask you, what inspired you to launch your own leadership program for educators and teens? So what inspired you?
Well, it inspired me because I actually got, apart from obviously during the pandemic when I had much more time to think about my journey as a teacher and as an educator, but I have always had the feeling that education right now, no matter what country, well, at least I've only experienced Western education and let's say Eastern European education, and judging based on those two exposures, I've just said to myself, this is not what it should be. We don't learn majority of the things that we learn in school. Either we forget after we've done the exam, or it's useless information that we can now find at our fingertips on the internet and so on. And actually, the most important things that we should be learning aren't there, and that is why there is so much more. That's where my concept of the proactivity comes in. Is if I'm taking a human that's now an adult in a career, I don't ask them, what are you doing right now, or how is your life right now? I first ask them, how was your life during learning, and how do you think that learning or those things you have learned have shaped who you are today and how you behave today? Because, for example, if you take an adult that's in a career that they may not necessarily be satisfied with, they might not be financially well off, or they might not be satisfied with the money that they're making, you've got to think back to what did you learn about careers and what did you learn about money while growing up, whether that was from family or from the education system that you were in. And unfortunately, to say, for a lot of people, they don't get the foundation of learning from families, from parents and very close family members. They don't learn the right values when it comes to money or even what careers to choose. They sometimes just get led. So their lives are actually just a reflection of who my mum and my dad wanted me to be, what career they thought, would be good for me, or I'm going to do the exact opposite of them. Those sometimes are, I want to say, those can either be good points or they can backfire. So if you learnt, let's say, positive habits when it comes to money and to career or to work from your parents, and you decide, actually, I want to be the opposite because they worked way too hard and I don't want to work like they did. Sometimes you end up losing the practices or the habits that actually made your parents or family members successful, either financially or career-wise, and you end up missing those things because you want to be completely opposite. And I took that aspect, not about money but about relationships. So I said, I want to be the complete opposite to my parents when it comes to relationships. But I also actively took the idea that, okay, I'm not going to just be completely opposite, but I am going to look at what did they do well in their relationships, and I only take those things forward. And of course, all of these things have a certain amount of thinking behind them. You have to decide to want to do those things, or you have to decide that you want those good parts or those good habits in your life, and understand how they will actually impact your current life or current reality, rather than just, oh, I'm just going to be the opposite to them because I didn't like it. Okay, that's very, only working at the basics. What are you going to do to be better than them, or to do better? And this is the concept that actually we don't get taught in schools or in the education system, or even in our families. A lot of the time we don't get taught to discover who we want and what we actually want, because the concepts of kids should be seen, not heard, that kind of concept, and then that's why you end up having teenagers who rebel and go against their families and their parents' kind of teachings. The same thing in schools. You need to learn this particular thing, opposed to actually how can we introduce the learning or the concepts of education or this particular subject. How can we teach geography in a way that a child will actually like to go, I don't know, mountaineering or exploring? We can do education much easier and much more effective. That was at the core for me. It was like we're trying to like force an entire, not just generation, but an entire sector of the population of the world to fit into a box that actually the box was built in the 1600s or 1400s, and it's just like, how is it that every other part of society has evolved, has changed, has adapted, but education hasn't?
Yeah, this is so true. And I hate it when people say, oh, I can't change. I think as human beings, we are the most sensible one to accept growth and change. And please don't tell me that you can't change, because hello, if you think that it's difficult to change, then we will still be using pigeons to send mails, right? No one will be having the latest smartphone on their hand. Hello, if you are capable of having the latest smartphone and being able to change your ways of communication, so why is it difficult for you to change your habit? It's because we're not taught. And I think to sum up that one word which kept coming up for me as you were speaking, we were not taught, right? We were just taught to conform. That's it. We all just were taught to conform. Being our authentic self is not accepted. We will be looked at differently. We will be judged. We will be isolated.
And that's why my one of my catchphrases right now is "Don't be a sheep."
Love it. I love what you're doing. So when is it launching and how can one sign up?
So we're currently at the moment focusing on launching a teens 7 Habits for Teens program, and it's already live and able to for people to sign up to the platform. It's I'm in a partnership, so I'm a co-creator on the platform called FLC, or Future Lifestyle Creators. You can find
it under Zishans?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I had a session last week with them. So you're one of the. Okay. Cool.
My course was the first one to actually be completed and to go live on the platform, and I'm extremely grateful that I can. That's why I said I've surrounded myself with people who believe in the same vision and the same principles, and that's why I essentially, I don't need to do it all myself. I have, when you have a collection of people who are helping and collaborating and each come with their own zones of geniuses, then you're able to progress much faster and much better. So my program is live at the moment, and I can send you the link to the actual sign up page for teens. Ideally, we are looking for teens from 13 to sort of 20 maximum. because we want to focus it in the time is when the most amount of changes in a young person happen. So just before they go to university and just after they have started, let's say, traditional high schooling stage in their life. And that's it's basically the 7 Habits for Teens program is available for to do online at your own pace, but it's also available for, depending on the interest at the moment, to do a live coaching call weekly with myself. Ideally, if you want to sign up to do the live coaching alongside it, then we can arrange that either on a one-to-one basis or on a group basis for those that show interest. So yeah, you can find us on Instagram, you can find us on LinkedIn as well, Future Lifestyle Creators, or my own links and platforms is Effective Education on LinkedIn, or just my name, Elena Calita, on LinkedIn, and Effective Education, Elena.Effective Education on Instagram as well.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing. As Zishan was sharing last week when I was on the podcast with him, I had my niece on mine, so I went and checked out the website. She's turning 13 next year, and I think she has picked up a lot of cultural norms, like in school and also at home. I'm always like pushing her to think big, pushing her to think different. And she's super, super talented. She's super talented. At the age of 8, she could cook a whole meal for like the family, like a 3-4 course meal for a family. And being Indian family, our Indian cooking is not easy. It's pretty tough. She cooks everything except rice. So she's super talented. So I wanted to learn about this, and I keep telling her like we both should collaborate, and like she's very creative. So, and I love journals. So I told her, why don't we collaborate and start selling journals? So I told her to, come up with some designs and all, but I think she's also very tied up at school. So yeah, so I did have her on mine. And I think and I didn't know it's like one of the 7 Habits. I gave her the book because I have the 7 Habits for Teens book, and she just chucked it somewhere, and I got so annoyed. So I think this will be a good start for her, because I guess she's just not a reading person. Yeah,
that's the thing. So obviously it's subtitled as well, so you can have it transcribed and things like that. But I think I simulate it to myself. How would I like to learn, and how do I learn best? And actually through videos I've learned the absolute most, and through listening to audiobooks. I don't like to read either, but getting someone else to read it to me, I'm still getting that goodness, and I'm still getting the best effects of learning. It's just making it your own that counts the most. Making your learning suitable and best for you as a person. But without you knowing how you learn best or who you are, you won't know what the best option is for you.
Yeah, exactly. Totally agree. So my last question for you is, what is your message to the world, Elena?
My message to the world is to influence those young people in your lives to think outside the box that they may have been put in, but at the same time guide them with the right habits and the effective habits that you have learnt in your lives. So it's our responsibility as adults and as caregivers, as grandparents, as every influencers. Our teenagers and our young people look to us for inspiration and for guidance. Give them the guidance, but don't allow them to conform just for the sake of conforming.
Yeah. As simple as we put, monkey see, monkey do, right? Our kids don't do the things that we tell them to do. They do the things that we do. They see us do. They role models. They basically model, right? And some parents, I think most people, right? They would probably scold their child for not studying or ask their child to study more, but they themselves are not like reading a book or contributing to their own self-growth. So you can't blame the kid in another sense. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Elena. I had a wonderful time chatting with you. And it does makes a difference when you speak, when you're having a conversation with a coach, because I'm also a coach myself. So as you were speaking, and because you kind of frame your questions, you have your way of saying things and asking questions. So internally, there's also dialogue that's going in my brain. It's like, because so I did have a lot of light bulb moments while you were speaking, and I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us on this soul-enriching episode of Spatial Sarah, the podcast that brings back the beauty of meaningful conversations. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I invite you to carry the inspiration from these campfire-worthy conversations into your daily life. Embrace the power of connection, open your mind to new ideas, and continue exploring the depths of our own thoughts. Share this episode with someone you know will benefit. Follow and tag me on Instagram at @IamSarahSammy, #CampfireWorthyConvo. Until next episode, keep dreaming, keep connecting, and keep embracing the magic of meaningful conversations. Signing off, your spatial buddy, Sarah.